LA filing number 16-7970.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers, LA 21-12681, offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to... Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on a Thursday. My days are shot with the holiday and went to New Orleans last night and just got back. It's Thursday. That means we're brought to you by Rouse's Markets and fired up to be here on this Thursday. Rouse's Markets, the official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Got Jordan Kitchens and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and loads to get to here over the next couple of hours. We'll have Luke Johnson in about 5 minutes from down in New Orleans. Joe Healey is going to join us at the bottom of the hour to talk a little SEC baseball as a whole. We'll certainly get his thoughts on LSU and North Carolina as well. The SEC is set to announce some football game times here in the next 30 minutes, so we'll get to some of that as well. Chris Blair going to jump aboard from Chapel Hill as he's set to call the Chapel Hill Regional, which starts 22 hours from right now with LSU and Wofford. I want to get into the North Carolina scouting report that I kind of put together this morning. Got a good look at both of their top two pitchers. I got to look at some of their best offensive bats, some of their numbers, some of the trends, and I'm going to get into a lot of that. Jay Johnson met with the media today, and I'll just tell you, they asked him, you going to start Jump or Holman? He was like, well, I'm not going to make that announcement, and don't assume it's one of those. So I'm not going to answer that question. They asked if Christian Little was going to be active. He said, I'm not going to tell you. So the media is doing their best to get some information from the head man up there in purple and gold, but they're not going to get much, and that's just the way Jay plays this thing at this time of year. He's not going to give anybody any sort of edge as far as advanced scouting of his team. He's going to announce at the last possible second who his pitcher is. I know that we found out last year for a 2 o'clock start in the regional that Paul Skeens was going to go. We found out at like noon. So I don't expect to know a starting pitcher until deep into the morning tomorrow. So we'll talk a little baseball coming up next. But we want to talk a little football right now. Luke Johnson covers the New Orleans Saints for The Advocate and NOLA.com. And he's with us here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Is it still pouring down rain in New Orleans? Because I drove through some of the worst weather I've ever seen in my life about an hour ago.
Thankfully, it has stopped because I'm on the road right now. The last thing I want to do, as much as I like you, Hunt, the last thing I want to do is talk to you. I'm fearing for my life because I can't see the road.
No, I would not have been able to take a phone call during the 15 minutes that I drove through rain in the Kenner area this morning. It was not a doable situation. So glad to hear that things have cleared up just a bit. Let's talk some Saints OTAs. You've been out there over the last 10 days or so. A lot of talk about Trevor Penning and his move over to the right side. I realize that they're not throwing pads on and you're not seeing live reps, but what has been kind of the talk from Saints camp about that move over to the right side for Trevor Penning?
One of the interesting things was they kind of had decided to make the switch from left to right before they even drafted Taliesin Bwanga. So I think the whole idea for the Saints and the words that you keep hearing from them with regard to Trevor Penning is fresh start. They want to just give him a chance to kind of wipe clean all that stuff that happened over the last couple of years with the injury in his rookie season and then getting benched last year, and just like say, hey, okay, clean slate, you're starting over, you're on the right side, and let's see if this works. And if it works, it's going to be really good because, I mean, look, they might have 3 starters on this offensive line who are on their rookie contracts. That's really, really valuable if you can get it to work. But obviously, like, Trevor's got to play a lot better where you can count on him being a starter in the NFL at offensive level. So, I mean, a lot still remains to be seen, but, I like the idea. And if it does work, it's going to be really good for them.
How has he taken that decision?
I think he's very open to the idea of playing right tackle. Because that's really a path to the field for him. I think if you were to ask me how did he feel about the benching last year, I think if you gave him a truth serum, he probably wouldn't have felt great about it. If the whole idea is to get his confidence up and then you never let him see the field for the last 10, 11 games of the year, I didn't really see the point in that. But it's just a new scheme and a new offense, new position. I think that this Clint Kubiak run scheme could really benefit him because it kind of takes advantage of the things that he's good at. It takes advantage of his athleticism and lets him get out and move in space a little bit. So I think it had potential to be good.
Let's talk about
if it does pretty well.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but let's talk about Taysom Hill and his new role in this offense. Is this going to be completely different from anything we've seen from Taysom Hill?
I don't know if I would go completely different, but it'll definitely look different. The first time we saw him last week, he was doing individual drills with the fullbacks, which was definitely different. That's definitely something new. And then we saw him out there this week. He was with the tight ends. I just think they're gonna really do the thing with him. They're really going to use him as the multi-purpose weapon instead of he was kind of doing that. He's playing some slot and taking some snaps as a quarterback, but it was still kind of predictable with him. If he was in the game as the quarterback, there was a really, really good chance they were going to run a quarterback power or read option. If he was in the game, split out wide, there's a good chance the ball was going to go to it. It was a little bit predictable with him, and I think that by truly putting him out in a number of different positions, it makes them less predictable. It takes him in the offense. There's going to be plays where he's lined up as a fullback and he's a lead blocker. So I think that's only going to make it better for him. I think the thing that really remains to be seen is whether his workload actually goes up, just in terms of touches. I was on the record many times last year saying I thought they needed to give him the ball more. And he's really their best offensive playmaker for much of last year, and he felt kind of underutilized, especially when the offense was struggling. I don't know if they'll get him to this benchmark where he's getting 8, 9, 10 touches a game, whereas last year we'd see him get 11 or 12 and then go 3 weeks where he'd get 2 or 3. But I do think that he's going to have a bigger role in doing more things. I just don't know if it's going to look a lot different than what it was before.
Is his time as a backup quarterback, emergency quarterback, over now that the Sean Payton, Pete Carmichael crew is out? Is that now Jay Kaner and obviously Spencer Rattler and whatever veteran they decide to bring in?
I think so. I think that he is now going to be this basically what he has been, right? Most of the time he's been on the field, that hasn't been as a true quarterback. It's been you're putting him on there to do the quarterback run, but he's not actually playing a lot of actual quarterback. I think it does kind of remain to be seen a little bit if Derek Carr has to sit for any extended amount of time because of injury. I wouldn't totally rule out the idea of Taysom playing quarterback just because their options behind him are just so inexperienced. But I do think that this new offense with Clint Kubiak is really just going to focus more on him as an offensive playmaker rather than a quarterback who can do other things.
Other side of the ball, Tano Passanio, torn Achilles is what the word was earlier this week. How big a hit is that to the Saints up front?
I think it's pretty big. But it's not something they can't overcome. Tano was a really good player for them the last couple of years as a rotational player who could give them a little bit of flexibility with the inside and outside rush. But I don't think that that's the type of thing that's going to crater their defense. He was a guy who's playing 20, 25% of the snaps. I think you're counting on one of Isaiah Foskey or Peyton Turner clicking. I think that was the hope even before Tano Passanio got hurt. So it's a blow for sure. He's been a good player for them, but like I don't think it's something they are not able to withstand even with the players they currently have on the roster.
If you had to bet a crisp $5 bill on either Peyton Turner or Isaiah Foskey clicking, to use air quotes, which one would you pick?
Yeah, I'd probably pick Peyton Turner just because like you've seen the flashes,
Yeah.
and like the odds of a guy just like having season-ending injury for the fourth straight year to start his career just seems so low. Granted, I would have said it would have been so low last year, and then he barely played because of the turf toe injury. So like he's got to stay healthy. But I think if he can stay healthy, like you've seen it from him. Whereas with Foskey, I just haven't seen it yet. And there's like some optimism there that they can get it out of him. Dennis Allen had a really interesting quote where he said he just wants to see Foskey turn it loose and not play so mechanically. If they can get that out of him, maybe you can see some of the production that he had at Notre Dame. He was a really good college football player, but he just he looked overwhelmed from day one last year. He got to get more out of him there. But I think I feel more comfortable saying Peyton Turner is probably going to be a guy who's contributing this year, assuming he's going to be healthy, than I do with Foskey right now.
He's on Twitter at @ByLukeJohnson for all your Saints info all year round. You can also catch him here every single Thursday. Luke, I know you got work to do. We'll let you get to it. Appreciate you making some time for us.
My pleasure, man. Talk to you next week.
Luke Johnson, Saints beat writer for The Advocate and NOLA.com. We're going to talk a lot of baseball over the next 30 minutes. Wanted to get that Saints segment in there while Luke was on the road because he said he couldn't quite jump on at his usual 1:15 time. So glad to squeeze that in. When we come back, I've got thoughts on the North Carolina Tar Heels. I talked about the Wofford Terriers yesterday and kind of said I'm not so sure I'm sold on Wofford. We'll give you my honest opinion on North Carolina. That's coming up next.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is the website. Instagram's where you can find them there, AVSS_BR. Look, nothing more important than the safety and security of your home and your family. And Mitchell Fisher and his team at Audio Video Security Solutions can get you hooked up. It was an easy process for us. He came over, counted the windows, showed us what we needed there. We told him where we thought we needed some cameras. He provided the cameras, put all that technology in. They installed it, and it's right there at the touch of our fingers with the app. We can set and deactivate the burglar alarm at the house. We can also monitor the cameras 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They've got playback, recording, and the picture is crystal clear right there at the touch of my wife and I's phone. We love it. We look at it every single day. I use it to deactivate the alarm before I take the little one in from school every day so I don't have to rush in and get him in and touch the buttons on the code right there. It's all very, very easy, and Audio Video Security Solutions handled all of it. If you do not have a security system at your home, I would strongly recommend you do that for a couple of reasons, but one being you can get a credit on your homeowner's insurance if you have it. Audio Video Security Solutions can help you with all of it. Check them out online, avssla.com. It's Audio Video Security Solutions at avssla.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045espn.com.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. We'll head up to Chapel Hill to get a check-in with the Tigers as they get ready for regional ball. And as Trevor Penning found a home at right tackle. We'll talk about it 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Appreciate Luke for making some time for us early. Got Connor O'Neill in the Bayou Ford chat. Says opening with Saints talk today before LSU begins postseason play is criminal. Are you even a baseball guy, Hunt Palmer? I'm a baseball guy. I don't think I have to prove that to anybody. However, we do like to talk Saints every day for a little bit on the show, and Luke comes on every Thursday. Wasn't available at his normal 1:15, so we just bumped him up 15 minutes. Don't take offense to it that we moved a 15-minute segment there, because we're going to talk baseball for the next 30 minutes here with Joe Healey coming up in 15 minutes. Another question on baseball from the Bayou Ford chat said, this is from the Boston Special, thoughts on next year's rotation potentially being Gage Jump, Chase Shores, and Jaden Newt, assuming they're all still here. Gage Jump is not going to be here next year. He's going to be a maybe a late first, early second round pick, certainly in the top 65 selections in the draft. So he will not be here next year. Chase Shores is dripping with potential, but obviously, as you know, he's coming back from Tommy John. So it was great to see him throw in a little bit yesterday in LSU's workout at the box. We'll see how he progresses, what they allow him to do in the summer, what they allow him to do at the fall. I think they'll take it in baby steps, but we know he's a huge potential guy. And then Jaden Newt is also coming off injury and has thrown one inning. So what I would say to that is, one, that Jump will not be here. The other two guys have great potential, and I hope that they're in use next year in some capacity for the pitching staff. It would surprise me any year if LSU did not go to the transfer portal and add a legit starting pitcher. That's just something that's very accessible to LSU. Just about everybody in the SEC is allowed to do it. The big-time names from like Chase Dolander got added to Tennessee from Georgia Southern. You know that Paul Skeens was here, Gage Jump here, Luke Holman here, Hurston Waldrop over at Florida. Like, you know the names, but that's just one of the guys in LSU, if not two or three of the guys in LSU's weekend rotation for next year, isn't on the team right now, is maybe playing for somebody else in the NCAA tournament. So I would suggest that's kind of how that situation will play out. Let's talk North Carolina. I want to give you my thoughts on them. Yesterday, I laid out pretty plainly how I feel about Wofford. I think their offensive numbers are inflated by a bad schedule and some monster outputs against really bad teams. And I think their pitcher, who is an ace by the numbers, has pretty pedestrian stuff, and we have back into the rotation guy in the SEC. I expect LSU to come out tomorrow and handle Wofford. It's a baseball game. They could get beat 11-1, and it wouldn't blow me away. That doesn't apply to football and baseball. Things like that just kind of happen. But I expect LSU to take care of business. That's my honest assessment of tomorrow's game. So here's my honest assessment of North Carolina after watching a lot of video, pouring over some stats, understanding some of the players like I do. First of all, in the overview by the numbers objectively. They're number 4 in the RPI. They went 42-23 this year, 22-8 in the ACC, which is regarded as the second best conference in college baseball. They won the ACC by a couple of games. They were 7-3 in ACC series this year. They swept Wake Forest, which is an impressive sweep. They did lose 2 out of 3 at Virginia, who's a very good offensive club, and they lost 2 out of 3 at NC State, who is a regional host as well. They were only 8-9 against Quad 1, which surprised me a little bit, but it's a good baseball team. North Carolina is good. We'll talk about their top 2 pitchers here, as they look to be pretty similar statistically. They are not similar in their journey and their stuff. They're very different pitchers at this point in their careers. The first guy is Jason DeCaro. He is a 6'5", 225-pound freshman right-hander. He was a big-time recruit, big-time signee for them, one of the top players out of the Northeast, and is a physical dude as a freshman. His fastball is up to 93. He's got a good slider. He'll also bend it a little more and throw a curveball. He's what those really, really good college pitchers look like early in their career. Against the ACC this year, DeCaro was 3-1. He threw 53 innings, gave up 47 hits and 26 runs. 23 of those were earned. That's an ERA in the neighborhood. I didn't write the ERA down for my notes. How about that? I think I have the statistics right here. So why don't I just pull those up for you? But he He had a really solid year in ACC play and had a batting average against of 234, had 48 strikeouts and 27 walks. Good strikeout numbers, not great. High walk numbers. And he only topped 100 pitches once this year. He was really, really good against Pitt last week in the tournament. 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk. He's young. He's got some control issues at times. He will strike some guys out, but he's a really, really good prospect. Big, physical right-hander, Jason DeCaro. The opposite end of that spectrum is Shea Sprague. He is a junior. He is a transfer from Elon, where he had a really good 2 years. He's 6'3", 195, so he's 30 pounds lighter. And he's a pitchability lefty. His fastball is 90 miles an hour from like a three-quarter slot. He throws a changeup a good bit at 81, and he's got kind of a slurvy breaking ball. It's not, hurt your feelings stuff. This guy's pitchability. He wants to keep the ball down. He wants to change speeds with the changeup and the fastball, add and subtract, and get you off balance. And he's not going to strike a ton of guys out. 45 strikeouts in 51 innings in ACC play. ACC hitters hit 255 against him, and he was 3-0 in those 10 starts that he made. So you're talking about North Carolina's decision here twofold. One, which guy do we think we want to face LSU or Wofford in that winter game on Saturday? Do we want to send the veteran left-hander who's a pitchability guy, or do we want to send the hard-throwing right-hander with better stuff, but a little bit more volatile with his walks? And then secondly, do we want to use the other one in the 4-seed game against Long Island? That is North Carolina's decision they'll have to make. They met with the media a little bit earlier. I didn't see a starting pitcher announced. Maybe that happens later this afternoon. Maybe it happens tomorrow. But it's going to be interesting. One of those two guys, should LSU get to Saturday, they will see. Maybe they have the option of using both. Maybe they've used one on Friday. But that's the deal. My gut tells me if they pitch one of those two guys in tomorrow's game against Long Island, it would be Jason DeCaro. And I think they would save Shea Sprague for LSU. Now, that said, LSU does have White and Jones and Braswell at the top of the lineup from the right side. They have Travinsky from the right side. Maybe that's what they prioritize, and they'd rather go with the right-hander. I'd kind of rather have the veteran lefty to face LSU than the young buck who walks some guys from the right side. But that's just kind of my thinking. I don't know what they're going to do, but those are the two guys that are options for LSU to see should they get North Carolina on Saturday. Offensively, this is a team that is talented. They've got a leadoff man by the name of Vance Honeycutt. He is probably the toolsiest college position player in this draft. You're going to go, wait a second, what about Charlie Condon? Well, Charlie Condon is an average defender and doesn't run awesome. Vance Honeycutt is the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He's 6'3", 205, runs like a deer, plays a great center field, and has pop in his bat. So he's not as polished as Condon. He's not as good as Condon. He doesn't hit as well as Tommy White or Travis Bazzana or J.J. Weatherholt, but he's got the athleticism that trumps all those guys. He's the leadoff guy. In ACC play, he only hit 274, and he led the team with 42 strikeouts. So there's your rawness. He's going to swing and miss some. He's not a great contact hitter, but in ACC games, he hit 11 home runs and stole 17 of 19 bases. That far and away leads North Carolina in terms of base stealing. So 6'3" guy that can really, really run. He reminds me a little bit of kind of Jacoby Jones at LSU, where you're like, God, those tools are amazing. He's got quick hands. He can hit home runs. He can run. But it's not always the prettiest because sometimes he'll swing and miss. Sometimes he's not as polished bat to ball. But Jacoby Jones made it to the major leagues. And Vance Honeycutt's going to be a first-round pick coming up. But he's not their best hitter. The next two guys I would suggest are better. Honeycutt will hit leadoff. Casey Cook will hit second. He hit .317 against ACC pitching with 14 home runs, and he's left-handed. Honeycutt's right-handed. He's left-handed. And then the next guy in the lineup, the three-hole hitter, is another right-hander, so they go back, forth there. Parks Harbor, which, by the way, that name sounds like a $220 greens fee somewhere. Parks Harbor just sounds like a golf club to me. But he's also a really good hitter. He hit .356 in ACC play this year with 15 home runs. Parks Harbor played at Georgia for a couple of years. Once they made a coaching change, he was in the portal, decided to go to the ACC, and had a monster year for North Carolina. This team was the best offensive team in the ACC really all year long, and it was spearheaded by those guys. This, to me, is a fierce lineup. I think their pitching is good, not great. I think their hitting can be great. And in that ballpark, it really can be. Now, LSU has a good pitcher ready for them, depending on who LSU throws tomorrow and what the situation is if they play each other on Saturday. But to me, when I analyze North Carolina, I see a couple of good, not great pitchers, and I see a lineup that's got some depth and some star power to it. And there's a reason they're the 4 national seed. They're a good baseball team. Do I think they're better than Tennessee? No. Would I rather play North Carolina or Arkansas? I'd rather play North Carolina because I don't want to see Hagen Smith at all. Do I think they're better than A&M? I think they're comparable to A&M. This is kind of the breakdown I gave you with Texas A&M. I said, look, A&M's got some good pitchers, not great. Like Ryan Prager, everybody talks about him being an ace. I think he's fine. He went stride for stride with Hagen Smith in College Station a couple of weeks ago, but I don't see him as an ace, and I think that's the Achilles heel for Texas A&M moving through Omaha trying to win a national championship. I don't love their starting pitching. I don't love North Carolina's starting pitching. I think it's good, not great. I think their bats are really good, especially at the top. It's very much like Texas A&M. Now, LSU did take 2 of 3 from Texas A&M. We know that. This is on the road, and the stakes are a little higher. So we'll see how things play out. I believe North Carolina, very good. The skepticism that I gave you with Wofford yesterday, I don't necessarily carry as much of that with North Carolina. That should probably go without saying because North Carolina is a national seed and Wofford was the 5 seed and SoCon and is a 3 seed. But that's how I see it in terms of scouting them. You got to worry about Honeycutt getting on base and running at the top of the order, and then Cook and Harbor are really, really good right behind him as a left-handed hitter and a right-handed hitter. That's your look at these North Carolina Tar Heels. They will play Long Island coming up tomorrow at, I think, 5 o'clock our time up there in Chapel Hill. Our baseball breakdowns all season long are brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar. If you want to watch LSU all weekend long, get on by Plucker's Wing Bar. You can absolutely do that. They will have all the games on across the country over there at Plucker's. So you got 2 locations, Nicholson just south of campus, Bluebonnet Mall, Louisiana. They bring you our baseball breakdowns each and every day here on the Hunt Palmer Show. When we come back, more baseball with Joe Healey, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra team. It's Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit us at LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this spring for all the hoops and hockey playoff action. We got the biggest screens, the best food and drink, plus we're giving away Penn cash bonuses and prizes to Penn Play Rewards members. Not a member? Join today by downloading and registering for the Penn Play app from the App Store. Unlock all the fun, including a chance to win up to $2,000 in Penn cash. All this and more make LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino your spring sports viewing headquarters. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
emergency.
For the Friday edition of Live at Lunch, we are at Rufino's as always on a Friday, but we got LSU baseball as they take on Wofford in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Friday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Regional play cranking up tomorrow around the country. We'll see 64 teams in action, 32 baseball games tomorrow, weather permitting, and we'll be locked in to it all around the country. Those that love SEC baseball know about our guys at D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, Joe Healey and Mark Etheridge. Joe, good enough to join us every single Thursday. Joe, we excited?
Absolutely, man. This is the best time of year. As I speak to you, I'm on my way to Athens. I'll be in Athens this weekend to spend a little bit of time in Clemson for that regional. So yeah, looking forward to it. Absolutely.
What was your biggest takeaway from LSU's effort in Hoover last week?
I mean, for lack of a better way of putting it, the vibes feel good. Like, this feels like a team like last year that just looked like they're having a lot of fun. There were a lot of instances, and I don't have to tell you or your listeners this. There were a lot of instances first half of the season where this LSU team just didn't look like they were having very much fun. Like, I talked to a scout one time early in the season, and they were like, this team looks like they just met each other yesterday. And, now they kind of have a similar feel to what we saw last postseason. Now, are they as talented as last year's team? No. Am I as confident in their abilities? Of course not. Like, last year was a different deal. But this is now a team that, if they played like they did in Hoover, that's a team that could get out of a regional, which is something you and I couldn't have imagined, 6 weeks ago.
Understanding the arms they were facing, which was never an ace, and sometimes it was back into bullpens or guys that hadn't started games, what do you make of the offensive outbreak in the middle of the week there that LSU put together?
Yeah, I think you can still be optimistic about it while understanding the caveats, right? And I think part of the reason why I think you can be optimistic about it is look, they were still facing SEC pitchers, which, you against Wofford, you're not going to see that, right? You probably won't see something like that until you're in a super, and then, in Omaha. And if you're in a super, I think LSU feels pretty good because of the pitching that they have. So I take it as a positive that they were able to take advantage of the situation they were put in, because the reality of the situation is that, okay, yeah, you might run into an ace here in the postseason that just has your number, but more often than not, you're not going to be seeing anything better in the postseason than what you saw in the SEC tournament, even if it was pitching off and back of the bullpen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, those are ultimately arms that were good enough for high-level SEC teams to think, hey, you can pitch for us, and that's going to be better than a lot of what they see in the postseason.
All right, let's talk about the selection committee and the job that they did. I personally thought that Mississippi State deserved a regional. 16-14 against Quad 1 was loud to me. 17 SEC wins was loud to me. They were on the outside looking in. Did that surprise you?
No, just because I think which is not the same thing as saying I disagree with your take. I, too, thought they did enough to be a host. I thought they were playing well enough to be a host. They met a bunch of benchmarks to be a host. That being said, I was not surprised they weren't a host, because the committee is a pretty conservative body, and they tend to look at trends through the years, and they tend to look at those benchmarks as gospel. Now, then you have to ask the question of, okay, well, if that's the case, then how did East Carolina host? And I'm shrugging my shoulders. You can't see me in my car shrugging my shoulders, but I am. But from a state standpoint, no, an SEC team with a mid-20s RPI, that's just, to me, unless something changes philosophically, that's always going to be a non-starter. And so as it is, they're an extremely dangerous 2-seed, much like LSU, where it's like, the reward for hosting that regional is not what it should be, because you've got, teams that are playing really, really well right now headed those directions.
And I thought it was a little bit of salt in Mississippi State's wounds. And it was like, all right, well, Florida was the one real bubble team, and they got in. And Georgia was right there on the bubble for a top 8, and they got theirs, and we didn't get ours. Were you surprised at Georgia top 8 and Florida getting in?
Yes, on both a little bit. More so on Georgia as the top 8, just because I thought there'd be a little bit of SEC fatigue. And then Mark Etheridge talks about this in the Nerdcast sometimes of the committee. And I think relatively reasonably saying, okay, is the 5th SEC team, what we deem to be the 5th best SEC team, more deserving or better than a team, in this case, let's say Oklahoma, than a team that won the Big 12 by 3 games and, got to the final of the Big 12 tournament? And to me, I think 9 times out of 10, it feels like they'd go, no, let's get a Big 12 team in here. So yeah, I was pretty surprised by Georgia as a top 8. I think it's something that is, frankly, basically necessary for Georgia to get to Omaha, because I think they're going to have to go through Foley Field to be able to get to Omaha. I don't love the matchups of their pitching staff going on the road and their offense not having the benefit of playing in Foley Field.
Yeah.
So if you're a Georgia fan, I think you're thrilled about that, because it does give you a pass that you might not have had otherwise. And on Florida, look, when the committee decided that, I think if we'd have been able to see it the other way and see that, okay, like all of these SEC bubble teams are twos, I think if you'd have given me that piece of data first, I would have been like, okay, Florida's fine. And then we saw that in the end where they weren't even among the last four in. So I was surprised they were safely in. But yeah, I wasn't too shocked necessarily that they got in, but I sure thought it was going to be a close call.
All right, let's talk about some draws here. We'll start with the home team with LSU, obviously going up to the number 4 national seed in North Carolina. How do you feel about the Tigers' chances in Chapel Hill?
I like their chances to get to a regional final, but man, the idea that you have to pitch someone other than Jump or Holman against that team makes me nervous from an LSU standpoint. Look, I'm guilty of this. I live 15 minutes from the UNC campus, and I have underestimated all season how good that team is. And look, I don't cover the ACC for a living, so I don't see as much of it, but I see enough of it to know that, like, this team is actually really good. They're going to use a ton of pitchers. They don't really typically have, like, workhorse starting pitchers. They have a ton of old bullpen guys. And it's one of the rare places that LSU could have gone where, Tommy White is not going to be the most talented guy in the field. Like, that's Vance Honeycutt for UNC. As a true five-tool guy. Doesn't always hit for as much average as you'd like, but dude hits home runs. He robs home runs. He's a good runner. He does hit for some average. That guy is a guy that can beat you single-handedly. So it's a tough matchup from that standpoint for LSU. But other than that, I feel pretty good about LSU getting to the regional final. It's just a matter of how well they're able to deal with UNC's lineup once they get there.
Let's talk about Arkansas. Obviously, everybody knows that the Hagen-Smith chess piece is one that Dave Van Horn has to figure out what he's going to do. I would just stick him on Saturday and leave him there. But then you got the Arkansas bats that have got to wake up and be alive the rest of the way. How do you feel about the Hogs in a home regional?
I feel pretty good about it from the standpoint of, look, you can save that card. You can play the Hagen-Smith card later in the weekend. Because honestly, if you're going to throw Hagen-Smith against SEMO, no disrespect to SEMO, but what has all this, like, building up this depth of pitching, what has that all been for if you're going to use Hagen-Smith on a Friday? So I understand Dave Van Horn's an old-school guy, but I have to imagine that we see Hagen-Smith in a 1-0 game on Saturday. And then, look, you got to trust, whether it's Mason Molina or Gage Wood or Ben Bybee or whoever it is, you got to trust they can take care of SEMO, a team that Arkansas is familiar with. I think they play them most years, if not every year, in non-conference. You should just be able to handle that. So I like that they have that card to play, because once they get to 2-0, which I guess we can't assume, but let's go ahead and play this out. Once they get to 2-0, I do think that's where their pitching depth really shines, because we can nitpick, okay, Will McIntyre's not pitching as well. Molina and Tigert aren't pitching as well, but compare that to pretty much anybody else they're going to come up with on their 4th game of the weekend, and you like Arkansas's chances.
How do you like Mississippi State's chance going on the road? I know we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I kind of like the way their pitching's rounded into shape late with the addition of Dome, if he can help.
Yeah, I mean, Dome they're in a great position where you can just sprinkle Dome in as like a garnish, right? Like, we need an inning here. We've got tough hitters that I think you match up well against. Like, just go empty the tank for us. I think that's really valuable. Brooks Auger pitching the way he did last weekend, I think, is a positive. We've seen it in flashes from him, but if he can be their third guy, they're in great shape. And they're in a situation where I think Steven and Senja have both been good enough to where I think you feel okay with either of those pitching a potential Saturday night game. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if they get into some ugly, type of games where they have to score 10 or 12 runs to win, I'm a little less confident. But with the way they're pitching, to your point, I don't think it's going to come to that.
The show that comes on before me, they love their gambling lines, and that's what they love to talk about, and they did a bunch of that today, and they were all over Indiana State plus money in Lexington to come out of that regional. We know Indiana State's RPI was really good all year. We know they were in a super last year. How do you like their chances in Lexington?
Yeah, I think for both teams, you hate that, right? Because Indiana State's like, okay, they have a real case they should have hosted. Whether you agree or disagree, I think we can agree that they had a case, and so they're like, okay, great, you send us to the number 2 overall seed. And then Kentucky's sitting there like, wait a minute, we're the number 2 overall seed. Why are we getting Indiana State? Which proves what Mark Etheridge always says, that we always want it to be an S curve where the 16 host gets the best 2 and the 1 host gets the worst 2, but it just doesn't work like that. But I do think your guys are onto something there, where I think the biggest advantage Indiana State has in Lexington is that they play baseball pretty much the same way Kentucky does. They make every routine play. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to throw strikes, and they're going to try to play the inside game a little bit. They're going to run. They're going to do some bunting. Now, Kentucky obviously can hit with a little more pop this year, but so can Indiana State. I think Indiana State's more physical than they were last year. And so Indiana State might just do it better than Kentucky this weekend, and there might not be anything Kentucky can do about it. And I think back to last year where we looked at the regional in Terre Haute and thought, okay, this is cute, but they're going to send an ACC team there or whoever, and that team's just going to out-talent Indiana State. And what happened is they went to Indiana State, and Indiana State went 3-0 and was like, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed your time. They're just kind of quiet assassins like that. And so it wouldn't shock me if they come out of that regional. I picked Kentucky in our picks just because, man, they're the number 2 overall seed for a reason. But I agree that from a gambling standpoint, that feels like a pretty good bet to make there.
This will be the last one, Joe. We appreciate a little bit of your time. I made the comparison in my kind of UNC breakdown earlier in the show that they remind me a little bit of Texas A&M. I think their starting pitching is good. I don't think it's elite. I think they've got immense talent at the top of their lineup. I think they do hit a lot. I think there's some comps there with Braden Montgomery and Vance Honeycutt, and I think that was kind of where I went. If I was going with an SEC comp, is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Not a lot of star power on the mound, but guys who get the job done. Love playing matchups on the mound. A&M's games kind of tend to run a little long because they're going to play mix and match a little bit. Well, so does UNC. So if you're an LSU fan going to Chapel Hill, make sure you got a comfortable seat because you might be there a little while. But yeah, so I think it's a great comp. I mean, they've got talent at the top of the lineup. They're pretty well rounded. There's no real exploitable hole on paper. Every team has its weaknesses, but there's nothing that you see as a glaring weakness with that team. And I think the best thing you can say about them is if LSU or anybody else is going to come out of that regional, you're not going to be able to go in there and say, you know what, we're just going to let UNC beat themselves. That's just not going to happen.
How many games will you have in front of you at a given time while you're in the press box? You got the one on the field, and then how many screens are working?
Yeah, if you'd asked me this 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said like 3 or 4. But I've learned as time has gone on, if you're watching that much, you're watching nothing. And so I tend to have 2 other screens going.
Okay.
One of them is on, which I know still sounds like a lot. But I typically have Squeeze Play going on my phone with my headphones on Squeeze Play. So I'm kind of keeping like a 30,000-foot view of everything. And then on my laptop, I have usually whatever the most compelling SEC game is going on that I'm not at. That usually goes in the laptop. So I've got a system now where it used to just be total like buckshot, just like throwing everything against the wall and then trying to keep up with it. And I would realize I wasn't actually retaining anything. I was just looking at it, and that wasn't helping.
He's a grizzled veteran. All your SEC baseball information all weekend long, all postseason long at D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Package. Joe Healey with us every single Thursday. Enjoy the baseball this weekend, Joe. Thanks.
You too, Hunt. See you, buddy.
He is Joe Healey. It's tomorrow is one of my favorite days of the year. I mean, you're talking about 32 baseball games that are on. Now, I'll be sick watching LSU's the entire time, but that's the beauty of it, I guess. So appreciate Joe for coming on our baseball breakdowns brought to you by Pluckers all year long. Got SEC football game times for the first 3 weeks of the season. When's LSU playing? Who they're playing? I'll tell you about it coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electric. I tell you about Boudreaux's every single day. And I tell you that it's storm season every single day now that it is. But also, we've got these hellacious storms that come through all summer long when this warm weather comes in. I drove through one an hour and 45 minutes ago, and it was awful. The radar was purple. I could barely see. I wanted to get off the interstate. The hail was hitting my car. The wind was blowing sheets. Everybody's hazard light were on. And it was this small little radar. It wasn't even raining in Baton Rouge, but I was in New Orleans. Those are the kind of things that happen all the time, and it's a complete nuisance when your power goes out. Protect yourself from that, especially if you're trying to watch an LSU game and one of those rolls through and you can't watch because your power's out. Boudreaux's Electric, certified Generac dealer, a premier Generac generator dealer. That means they're in the top 3% nationwide in terms of Generac generators. Give them a call. 2 locations. They've got you in Napoleonville. They got you in Gonzales. 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. Protect yourself from power outages. Give yourself that peace of mind with Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $11,000 off the new 23 Dodge Charger. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $11,000 off the powerful new Charger.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. We'll head up to Chapel Hill to get a check-in with the Tigers as they get ready for regional ball. And as Trevor Penning found a home at right tackle. We'll talk about it 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
So the SEC just sent out a press release with all of the games involving SEC teams in the first 3 weeks of the college football season. So we have game times and networks announced. We've said some of them previously announced. They leak out from time to time, but this is the entire slate. So we'll start with LSU, then a couple of my observations. As you all know, SEC no longer has its contract with CBS. It's all ABC and ESPN. So LSU and USC will open the season, as you already know, at 6:30 Central Time. It'll be a 4:30 kickoff out in Vegas. That game is on ABC in Week 1. LSU will play its home opener the following weekend against Nicholls. That game will be inside Tiger Stadium at 6:30. We know that the SEC will give LSU the hat tip in these non-conference games almost every single time and allow LSU to play at night. That game will not be on traditional television and cable. It'll be streaming on ESPN+. LSU and Nicholls at 6:30 kick out in that opener. I always wear shorts to that game. I never, ever wear shorts because I'm going to work, and I just tend to wear pants to do the pregame show. Week 1, I'm wearing shorts. It's a million degrees, and it's Nicholls. So that game will be at 6:30. LSU opens SEC play in Week 3. It'll be at South Carolina. That game will be on ABC, which is new. It'll be at 11 a.m. Central Time. It'll be a noon kick over there in Columbia. So, look, I think this is a good spot for LSU. South Carolina fans are really passionate. They create a great environment, even though the team has not traditionally had the level of success as the Blue Bloods in the SEC. They had that one little blip with Steve Spurrier, and the rest of their football tradition has been pretty poor. But I like catching them early. I like catching them at noon out there. It's early. You don't have Spencer Rattler. They're breaking in a new quarterback. It's his first SEC game. I'll take it in the morning with as weak a crowd as they can produce. But I still, like I said, respect what South Carolina's fan base does, even though they're not a fantastic football program in terms of their traditions. So those are the 3 game times we have. Central Time, LSU USC, 6:30. Central Time, LSU and Nichols, 6:30. Central Time, LSU and South Carolina, 11 a.m. in Week 3. I was looking at some of the other games that we'll have to look at here, and one of the things that jumped off is that Ole Miss and Wake Forest in Week 3 are playing on the CW. I didn't even know the CW had football games, but they are. It's a lot of SEC, a lot of ESPN, a lot of ABC. There are some Foxes sprinkled in because of the Big Ten, like Texas and Michigan will play on Fox on Big Noon Kickoff in Week 2. So you'll see some Fox, but the CW for Ole Miss and Wake Forest in that one. You've got Houston and Oklahoma who will play a night game in Norman on the SEC network. That's a weird deal where Oklahoma and Houston are on the SEC network, but as we all know, those teams, once they bow out of the baseball tournament, will be SEC members for all intents and purposes. And then we got some games that are being moved later in the season. The Egg Bowl is no longer going to be on Thanksgiving night. That's been taken over by the NFL. So they're going to move that game to Black Friday and play it in the afternoon on ABC. They're also going to play Georgia and Georgia Tech on Black Friday on ABC. Florida and Florida State will be a more traditional game on Saturday. They haven't announced that yet, but it's not in these announcements, so we know that's going to be the case. Texas and Oklahoma have always played at 11 a.m. for the last 2 decades. They're not doing that. Welcome to the table, new kids. You're going to do what we tell you to do. So they're going to go and they're going to play on either ABC or ESPN at 2:30 Central Time. No more 11 a.m. kick with the State Fair and the fried Twinkies and stuff. No, you're going to play when we tell you to play, Texas and Oklahoma. And apparently they're a little cranky about that at this point. So not like earth-shattering news here, but it is some football content, and it is news for LSU. That first home opener will be a night game inside Tiger Stadium against Nichols, and LSU's SEC opener will be a morning game in our time, early afternoon game in Columbia against the Gamecocks at 12 Eastern. So if you're looking for that, I'm sure you can find it on Twitter. The SEC has announced it. You can find it on their website as well. The first 3 weeks of SEC football action, we have game times and networks all announced. Missed any of the first hour, you can catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find your sound, you can find us, as well as on YouTube. Luke Johnson led us off talking Saints, Trevor Penning specific. Also chatted with Joe Healey, D1 Baseball, about the SEC draws in the NCAA tournament. I gave my breakdown of the North Carolina Tar Heels. If you want some of that, you can catch that on demand as well. Lots to do in hour number 2. Chris Blair is going to join us in 20 minutes. Jay Johnson met with the media. We'll have some of that sound as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll pause for SportsCenter and come on back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I'm Doug Brown. Game 5 of the NBA's Western Conference Finals tonight in Minneapolis. The Timberwolves hope to continue their comeback. The Mavericks still hold a 3-1 series lead. Mavericks rookie center Derek Lively questionable after missing Game 4 with a neck sprain.
Just testing it out, you know. Get a knee in the back of the head ain't easy. It kind of just makes a chain reaction go down your back, go down your neck. So just trying to be able to just be more cautious of my body, trying to figure out what I can and can't do, and just testing it out.
Derek Lively at Shoot Around today. Our coverage of Game 5 Mavericks and Timberwolves starts at 8 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Hockey tonight, Rangers and Panthers. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final at Madison Square Garden. The series tied at 2. The last 3 games went to overtime. Game 5 at 8 Eastern on ESPN and ESPN+. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports Dolphins wideout Jalen Waddle will get a 3-year contract extension worth almost $85 million with $76 million guaranteed.
Feeling great starts with a great shave, and great shaves start with Barbasol Shaving Cream. That's Barbasol Shaving Cream, an American classic for over 100 years. Close Shave America, Close Shave Barbasol.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2. Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show presented by Rouse's. Working towards the weekend. Glad you're hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Going to talk to Chris Blair from up there in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, coming in 15 minutes. Just got a text from Blair, said he's good to go. He's just soaking in the 79-degree weather that feels like 79 degrees, which it'll be 79 degrees, like it feels like 79 degrees here by Thanksgiving at least, I would have to imagine. But it sounds like the weather is fantastic up there on Tobacco Road, and we'll talk to Chris Blair coming up in 15 minutes. Just wanted to give some of my thoughts on some of the SEC teams and their draws coming up this weekend. I really like Mississippi State this weekend. I just think that's a good baseball team, and I think Jerangelo Sainja is an X factor for them. I don't know how much Nate Dome can give them, but you saw a couple really strong outings from Mississippi State pitching last week in Hoover, and if they can get by St. John's without using Sainja and can take on Virginia, who's a very good offensive team, with Sainja, I just think that puts them in the driver's seat. And you still got Hunter Hines, who's had a really strong year. You still got Dakota Jordan. I think they're a really good team. I thought they were deserving of a host. I said that all week. We're going to see what the ACC's got this weekend, and I guess we'll see what the SEC's got this weekend as well. We understand those have been the preeminent two conferences in college baseball. Is there a big separation between the two, or is the ACC really competitive this weekend? You got a couple of ACC teams hosting SEC teams, like a few of them actually. You got Mississippi State going to Virginia. You got LSU going to North Carolina. You've got Vanderbilt going to Clemson. We'll see how those series shake out. I kind of like Mississippi State this weekend. I don't love Vanderbilt. The reason I don't love Vanderbilt, they're going to Clemson. Carter Holton didn't pitch last week, and there's doubt on whether or not he can help them. Vandy has been very rotation dependent all year. They've needed Holton to be really good, like he was in Baton Rouge. That's why they won this series. And you've got monster stuff with a couple of the other guys that they've tried it out there, but it's been very inconsistent. And when that pitching has faltered, they've gotten swept. They got swept 3 times this year. And so I don't trust them to go to Clemson. I heard an interesting stat this morning listening to the Highway to Hoover podcast with Joe Healey and Mark Etheridge, where they went throughout the entire deal. Clemson has lost 5 consecutive home regionals. That is a tough pill to swallow. You do enough over the course of 56 to 60 games to plant yourself as a top 16 team, and you get 5 chances and can't come through once. Like that's tough. We know they played that epic game last year with Tennessee where they should have had it won really twice, and they couldn't get it done. And Tennessee ends up winning that regional and going to Hattiesburg and winning that super and getting to Omaha. So that was a good Tennessee team they saw. Vanderbilt's gone up to Clemson and won twice to this point. And we know that Tim Corbin spent some time at Clemson as an assistant coach before he got the Vanderbilt job. But I still like Clemson to come out of that regional. I don't love Vanderbilt a ton. Arkansas, I think, is going to be fine because they can pitch Brady Tiger or Mason Molina or whoever they want to in the 1-4 game, I believe, against Southeast Missouri. And then that leaves them with Hagen Smith, and you're just not going to beat that guy. I mean, I realize that Arkansas has now lost a game that he pitched. They lost a crazy extra inning game where Hagen Smith didn't give up a run and struck out 13+ in College Station. Ryan Prager was great that day, but he's just the X factor. And Maneri always pitched his dude in that Saturday game. Lang always pitched on Saturday. Nola always pitched on Saturday. Gosman pitched on Saturday. That was the way that he was going to structure the thing when he had the advantage and was at home. We saw Jay Johnson pitch Paul Skeens against Tulane last year. I don't know exactly what Dave Van Horn's going to be, but I've got to think that he would hold Hagen Smith. And if he does, and they win against the 4 seed in SEMO, I don't really have any issue with Arkansas winning that regional. Florida is in the right ballpark. I will tell them this. I mean, Oklahoma State plays as an absolute launching pad. If you remember a couple of years ago, Arkansas went up to a regional there in Stillwater, and the scores were laughably huge. I mean, 20 runs were being scored on multiple occasions. That place just gets real offensive, and Florida's really only gear is to go hit a bunch of home runs. They have not gotten great starting pitching. They have not gotten great relief pitching. Their defense has faltered at times. They're just a home run hitting outfit. They're going to start Liam Peterson tomorrow, and I think that's the right move. And we'll see if he can get them through game 1. If he does, then Kevin O'Sullivan has got a decision to make, because I think he goes with Jack Caglione. The reason Jack Caglione has been pitching on Sundays for 2 years is because, they had two really good arms last year in front of him. But it's so he is not tired from pitching 120 pitches and is compromised in his ability to hit the next day. Well, I don't care. We got to win the first 2 games. So you go up to Stillwater. If Florida can beat Nebraska, who's going to throw the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year at them, with Liam Peterson, a freshman who's been better lately, then Oklahoma State gets a ticket to face Jack Caglione in the marble game. And that's just not a lot of fun when your 3 seed can bring a 6'4" left-hander who throws 97 miles an hour and pitched in the College World Series final last year in the marble game when you're top 16 and a host. Like, that's not a lot of fun. But I think I don't trust Florida to go to Stillwater and win. I don't trust them behind Liam Peterson to beat Nebraska, and I don't trust them to win enough games in that regional to get out of it. They just haven't been good all year. They have had their moments. Yes, they beat Texas A&M in a series. Yes, they beat LSU in a series, but it's just not a great team. LSU kind of turned it on there late. Florida just they never turned it on. So I don't trust Florida to go and win. I always, when LSU is going to be a national seed, keep an eye on the SWAC champion, because generally speaking, that's not going to bring in a pitching staff that's going to hurt you in game one. A&M gets scrambling the SWAC champion in their regional this weekend. And so, to me, A&M, who I don't trust their starting pitching very much, should be able to score 13 runs tomorrow against Grambling. Like in that ballpark with Montgomery and Laviolette and Grahovic and all those guys, I think they should be able to score 13. So to me, I don't think it matters who they throw out there. Yes, I watched Southern come into Baton Rouge and beat LSU earlier this week. Yes, I saw Jackson State go to Louisiana Lafayette and win game one of a regional when Louisiana Lafayette was a national seed. But Grambling doesn't have anybody on their team with an ERA under 6. And A&M is one of the best offenses, especially at the top, in college baseball. That means they can hold Ryan Prager for game 2, where they would get either ULL or Texas. And to me, that gives them the best chance to win. And I think ULL and Texas will have to burn their best guy tomorrow. Now, LeBaron Johnson is good, and we'll see where he factors into this thing. I don't know enough about what Texas wants to do with Louisiana Lafayette, and that's a decision that we'll hash out tomorrow. But I think A&M got a good draw, and I expect them to come out of their regional. Georgia, I thought, got a great draw. For being the back end of the top 8 seeds, to get the draw they got, I thought was pretty generous of the selection committee. Georgia's really offensive in that ballpark. We know all about Charlie Condon and that whole crew. They're awesome in that ballpark. They very rarely lose. And I think when you look at the teams that got sent there, I just don't know if there's anybody that I feel like can hold Georgia down long enough to make it work. Your 2 seed is Wilmington. I don't think so. Georgia Tech is a very mediocre team, and then you've got Army, who's not going to have the horses. I shouldn't say that. Army's the one school that does have the horses. But no, I think Georgia, with their offense against those pitching staffs, is going to cruise. I know Georgia's pitching staff is not great, and if they got beat, I wouldn't be totally floored, but I like Georgia in that ballpark. So it's kind of a tour around the SEC in what I think. I expect the SEC to have a big 2 weeks. Dave DeLucci went on SEC Now, and I realize it's on the SEC network, and they're going to slant things a certain way, and that's just the way things go. But he said he expected 6 teams in Omaha. I'd be shocked if the SEC got 6. I would not be shocked if they got 5. And 4 is the max. We saw that last year, and I'd be surprised if they didn't get 4. I think 4 to 5 is the sweet spot. 6, I'm shocked. 3, I'm shocked. We'll see. I'll be pulling against all of them if you were curious, except LSU. All right, let's take a time out. When we come back, Chris Blair is going to be with us from Chapel Hill. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to a championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with LeBears Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
The best.
Join us for the Friday edition of Live at Lunch. We are at Rufino's as always on a Friday, but we got LSU baseball as they take on Wofford in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Friday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Got a little bit of breaking news here from New Orleans, and I'll tell you, like, I had a class one time where the teacher sat us down before tests and actually read the test questions off to us prior to handing us the test and making sure we had the right answers, and then she would hand the test to us, and I always thought that was really easy, made the decision really easy because you had the answers. This decision might have been that easy. Drew Brees has been elected to the Saints Hall of Fame, the greatest player in the history of the franchise, 13-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 80,358 career passing yards, second all-time, 6-time leader in completion percentage, 4-time leader in passing touchdowns, Super Bowl champion, the greatest athlete in the history of the state, the most impactful athlete in the history of the state, will have his name enshrined in the Superdome as he is elected into the Saints Hall of Fame. So I will have more on Drew Brees tomorrow because I think it's important that we take a lot of time, and this is breaking news, literally. But pretty easy decision by those who – I don't even know who makes the decision to put the Saints in the Saints Hall of Fame, but that was an easy one for them. He's the greatest player in the history of the franchise and led the franchise through what was the toughest time in the history of the franchise to the highest of highs. And now you're kind of stuck reaching back trying to find how great that was, and you realize it's really tough. And once you get that kind of player, you got to ride that as long as you can, and the Saints certainly did. It disappoints me, I think, that Drew had to walk out of an empty Superdome for his last game because of COVID, but certainly the memories that Saints fans will have of Drew Brees will last a very, very long time. Drew Brees, the newest member of the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. Let's go out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline. We'll head up to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where Chris Blair is enjoying some crisp Appalachian air. We're going to talk some baseball. Chris, how are you?
Doing great, man. This is weather-wise couldn't be better after a week in very muggy, very hot Hoover, Alabama. This is a nice relief. As I joked with you, 79 degrees, and it feels like 79.
I mean, I'm sure it's a nice break to get up to Corvallis and Eugene, too, but that's kind of a long flight. This is just a quick jump up to Chapel Hill. It's nothing.
Yeah, under 2 hours. We were here yesterday, no problem. And, no, I'll take Chapel Hill, the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, the Triangle any day over the Northwest.
Let's talk about Hoover. Long week there as they made it all the way to Sunday, but I think a positive week for the team. What was your biggest takeaway from the week in Hoover?
You know, I think going over there, Hunt, that, Jay was pretty clear. They had some work left to do. It was great to sweep Ole Miss. It was great to be one of the 5 teams to get 13 wins, which has been kind of that magic number, if you will, at the bare minimum for an NCAA tournament bid. But I think Jay knew that, there's 5 of those teams in the SEC. Are they going to take, 11 SEC teams? We found out later they would. But at the time, there was still some work, I think, left to be done. And then I think because LSU played so well against Georgia and then played equally well, if not better, against Kentucky, I think the mindset for Jay and the staff and this team was, you know what? Let's go see if we can't win this thing because we're playing really good baseball. And sure, there's something to be said for some rest and getting ready for obviously another grind, which is the NCAA tournament on the way to Omaha. But I think they kind of got caught into, you know what, we're playing so well, let's keep it going. And they certainly did. I mean, making their way all the way to Sunday, I think really benefited them. Where there's other teams who had less work to prove, they had done all they needed to do in the regular season. They kind of took the notion that, well, we'll let our team rest and get ready for the regional. I think LSU is going to be benefited by it. We'll find out, but I think they're benefited by, coming off the sweep of Ole Miss. They continued to play their best baseball of the year, and I don't think that it bothered them one bit. I think it actually believe it emboldens them a little bit more the way they played last week in Hoover. They got great pitching from everybody just about that they put up there on the mound. The bullpen, I think, has certainly been improving over the last 4 to 5 weeks. I think at the plate, they're probably taking their best at bats. I know Jay told the media that earlier today at practice in Chapel Hill. And then I think one of the things that maybe we don't look at enough is defensively. They've played really well over the last several weeks. And, just 3 errors in Hoover in those 5 games. So I think it was good for them, and I think they took a lot out of it. And now they just got to, kind of keep carrying over, playing their best baseball as each game comes, starting tomorrow against the mighty Terriers of Wofford.
We know that Tommy White's been sizzling for 3 weeks. Jared Jones homered in his last 4 SEC games. Stephen Milam has come alive as well. But one of the guys who maybe got lost in the shuffle a bit was Jake Brown, who earned a spot to start the season, kind of lost that spot, was kind of a man that we didn't see for a while, and now all of a sudden has found a little bit of a power stroke. Could he be an X factor this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it was telling to see him get the starts, there in Hoover the last 3 games because, you've got a really good, albeit young, center fielder defensively. I think you're solid with Paxton Kling when he's out there defensively. But I think both Paxton and Mac Bingham, who had played at center field, kind of had been obviously going through the woes at the plate. And, Jake Brown just about all season long when asked to do something, get a quality at bat, make something happen, he's been able to do so. So, I mean, he had an excellent time at the plate in Hoover. So I'd be shocked if he's not kind of the everyday center fielder from this point on, but we'll wait and see until tomorrow. But I think he was certainly a big factor because, Jay mentioned to me prior to the game against South Carolina on Thursday, I asked him about how the team had adjusted to playing in this big park with all the area to cover in the outfield. And he said, I think we're really good. And that was with Mac Bingham starting. And he goes, and I think we can make some changes in the game that make us a great outfield. And those changes included Jake Brown defensively. So I think that speaks a lot for the trust they have in him.
For sure. And listening to your calls and then having this conversation every week, it sounds to me like you enjoy watching Stephen Milam play baseball, correct?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Stripes or no stripes. I enjoy
I saw that on Twitter. He's got purple hair now.
Yeah, it was noticeable when he stepped on the plane yesterday, to be sure. But, yeah, I mean, he is so much fun. I mean, to be the small package that he is, but so much dynamite within it. And now all of a sudden, a guy that is showing power in the bat, but he's just got such a high baseball IQ. He seems to be pretty even keel as the game goes along. He's a switch hitter, has improved his hitting from the right side, and is just an absolute vacuum cleaner at second base. I mean, he is a lot of fun to watch. And it's just amazing sometimes to think he is a true freshman, that this time last year he was finishing up high school baseball. He's something. I think the future is super bright for Stephen Milam. And again, I think he's one of those that is a big factor. He's been consistent most of the year, Hunt, and you're a stat guy. You know, his batting average is impressive. It's the other stats with him at the plate, to me, tells me how good he is as a freshman. Runners on, runners in scoring position. That's hard to do from start to finish in your freshman campaign. And so kudos to him. I think he's certainly one of the best freshmen in the country.
I know enough about Jay Johnson to know that we're not going to find out who the starting pitcher is tomorrow until right up before first pitch, so I'm not going to ask that question. But I will ask, what do you think the factors are between Gage Jump and Luke Holman? Because I can't really remember a time where there were two pitchers at the front of LSU's rotation that appeared to be so even in terms of their production. I realize they throw from different hands, but like usually there's a clear-cut ace and a number two. That doesn't appear to me to be the situation right now. So what do you think Jay's weighing right now?
I think, again, it was funny. That was one of the first questions asked at his press conference today. And of course, the quick answer was, nope, not going to tell you. And that's no surprise. My guess is they know. I mean, a lot of cases, truth be told, Jay and his staff do a lot of studying, and they think about it. And it's not just an everyday, he knows who's going to go before they leave to take on so-and-so team. There really is a lot of analysis made, and I'm sure a lot of it's been done all week as they've studied these three other teams, which obviously they haven't played. But I think you're right. The fact that there's a lot of similarity in the results that you get, and frankly, the style of pitching that you get from both Gage Jump and Luke Holman, it's easy to sit here and go, you know what, Wofford, a team that, again, would not be here had they not won the Southern Conference Tournament. They're, I think, 69th in KPI. Their strength of schedule is like 119 or 120. So why would you go with your quote-unquote ace against Wofford? Well, you could have made that argument, as you well know, and I'm sure you've mentioned last year, with Paul Skeens taking on Tulane. One of the things Jay has told me time and time again, and I go back to last season when a lot of teams on the back end of the conference schedule started switching up their weekend rotation and pitching backwards against LSU. And I asked Jay publicly, is there any thought to doing that for you guys? And he said, I tell my team, I'm going to put them in a position to win every single game. That's what we do. Every game is a chance to win. And that's just something I don't typically do. I think this year when the two back-to-back Thursday through Saturday series came up, I think there was a lot of talk about how do we get these guys set for the back end and keep them on a steady rotation. I think that had a lot to do with the way that they changed that from Holman to Jump to Holman. I'd be stunned if Gage Jump's not on the bump tomorrow. Wouldn't surprise me. I certainly understand the arguments for holding him and maybe even going with Holman first. But to me, it would be very surprising if they change kind of the role, the schedule, and the mindset that this team has had really going over the last 5 or 6 weeks.
I think I'm with you there. A couple of scene setters for you if you could. That's a lot of baseball those guys played in the hot sun last week. How's the energy level?
It's pretty good. I mean, practice was really good today, and I think they certainly, once they got to the ballpark, and I think practice started somewhere around 11 o'clock, it was even cooler than it is now, and I think they were excited to play in it. But, practice was spirited, and, the guys looked like – I think there's something about telling a 18 to 21-year-old in mid-March that, hey, guys, all these games matter and, all these series are going to add up. But I think once they really knew their back was to the wall, this team's had a different mindset, very business-like approach. And, I didn't sense anything different when we got here yesterday, getting off the plane, loading the buses, getting to the team hotel, the team breakfast this morning, and practice. It's all been pretty much the same, really, for the last 6 weeks or so. So I don't expect anything different. I think they're ready to go. And I think it's going to be a fun weekend here in Chapel Hill.
Give me a scene setter of the venue comparable to any in the Southeastern Conference.
No, not really. I mean, it's going to be about 4,800 seats. I think they said they might can shoehorn 5,000 people here. It's very picturesque. It reminds me a little bit of Foley Field in Athens, just because of the foliage and the trees, and it's kind of got a very green spaced feel to it, a little bit like Oregon. to be honest with you, a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful, picturesque. They modernized it, I think, about 12, 15 years ago, added more seats down the left and right field lines, spruced up the concourse and the press box area and the suite level. It's a nice venue, to be sure. It's a little wonky. Its dimensions are a little unique just simply because it's a little deeper to the left, and then they kind of have like a little curve that comes in right field that really makes it a fairly short porch to right and to right center, because it actually bows in towards home plate as opposed to bowing out. So that's a little different. And Jay said they worked on it in the outfield a good bit today just to get the guys used to the way the dimensions are. But it's going to be nice. They told us there's not a ticket to be had through the school. So, again, when North Carolina plays, expected to be a good crowd. So we'll see what it's like tomorrow at 11. We apparently were told that this finishes up the Maymester here at the University of North Carolina.
Okay.
And they politely asked us not to tailgate on Friday. And I thought, I don't know how many LSU fans have made their way to Chapel Hill, but good luck with that, Sheriff Taylor.
Yeah, I don't think they care about the Maymester up there. That's just my guess. It's just my guess. Get you some Carolina barbecue and enjoy that weather, and bring us home a couple wins this weekend.
Sounds good, Hunt. Take care. Have a good weekend.
He's Chris Blair. He'll be on the call tomorrow, 11 o'clock Central Time. You can listen to it on Eagle 98.1 here in Baton Rouge or whatever your affiliate is on the LSU Sports Radio Network. They'll be on the air at 10:30 a.m. with the pregame. So fired up for some baseball coming up tomorrow. Jay Johnson met with the media earlier today. We've got that sound. We'll give it to you coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Power up your next project with John Deere Deals by Sunshine. Whether you're working hard or playing hard, our knowledgeable team will help you find the right product for you. Ask us about our amazing tractor package promotions. Learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. We'll head up to Chapel Hill to get a check-in with the Tigers as they get ready for regional ball. And as Trevor Penning found a home at right tackle. We'll talk about it 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
When you look up at the end of it, there's 40 wins on the board, and against the schedule we play, that's a tremendous accomplishment. I think more important to us than that is how we play. And I think the brand of baseball has been great in terms of the pitchers throwing strikes. We've played great defense here down the stretch and really probably taking our best at bats of the season. And so with a lot of confidence and energy. So that's a sustainable, winning formula for us, and I'm happy we found our stride with that.
That's Jay Johnson up in Chapel Hill meeting with the media today. LSU and Wofford tomorrow at 11 a.m. our time, noon up there in North Carolina. That was Jay talking about the sustainable brand of baseball that they've played, and they've certainly pitched it very well. Now, of course, the first two questions that he's going to get when he shows up is, how's Christian Little doing, and have you decided on a starting pitcher? And you know what the answers are going to be. So I'll give you the sound on Jay, and we'll start with who's the starting pitcher going to be in Game 1, and you knew that this was coming.
So I'm going to guess you're not going to tell us who's going tomorrow, either, correct?
That would be correct.
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought I established that a long time ago. We're in the Carolinas, so you can talk to Gary Gilmore about how that goes with me.
That's cool. Trying to get the answer out of him. That is a thing of beauty. And then the answer on Christian Little's status, he said that would be a Thursday call.
Is there any update on Christian's availability for this week?
Yeah, we'll keep that to ourselves. Sorry. Doesn't do me any good to talk about it.
And that's Jay's line. That tells me that Christian Little's not pitching this weekend. He wants them to prepare for Christian Little. And if he's not going to be available, then they wouldn't have to prepare for him. He's not going to allow that. He's going to make them spend the time and effort to prepare for Christian Little. That's just the way it's going to go. But it doesn't sound to me like a guy who did not participate in practice today and they're not commenting on is going to be available. It's really unfortunate for Christian that he turned that corner and had really been a key bullpen piece and sounds like may not be able to pitch this weekend. And it's a blow to LSU because a regional is a collection of outs. I say this all the time. And whether you're up by 10 or down by 10, you've still got to get outs. And you burn pitchers that you're going to need in spots you may not want to if you don't have everybody available. So not having Christian Little is a big deal. Now, Jay did speak to kind of what his thought process is in deciding on a pitcher in a regional and kind of gave a little bit more information on that.
At this point, you're only playing a good team. For instance, in this regional, I think everybody but us has won a championship already this year. So, of course, you're going to respect them. I think the regional is unique in every year. It's a unique weekend in terms of you take it one game at a time, but you have to look at the totality of it because there's such a big difference whether you win or lose the first game or not, or you win or lose the second game or not. So you have to take everything into account, and that's why I've always been like, hey, the pitching plan is designed for the whole weekend with respect in everybody.
And look, I'm going to probably go against the conventional line of thinking here because we saw an under 500 bad Tulane team come in here last year, and LSU threw maybe the greatest pitcher in the history of the program at them. I'm not 100% convinced Jay's going to throw his ace in every regional Friday the rest of the way. I know that there are some people are because of last year. I think he does understand that it's not always mandatory that you do that. Of course, there were weather concerns last year. There were bullpen concerns last year, and you knew that Paul could chew up a bunch. There were probably more factors than he's our ace, he goes in game one. And that soundbite would lend itself to that line of thinking. But in this situation where you're a 2 seed, you're playing a 3 seed that swung the bats pretty well, and you've got 2 guys, you've got some decisions that you're going to make. Jay talked about Wofford and what his analysis of their game one opponent has been thus far.
Wofford is a great team. I mean, they're hitting 340 as a team. They have 144 stolen bases. Toole's one of the best players I've seen that we'll play against this year, their leadoff guy. Cowan has had a terrific season from the mound. They're really well coached, so very worthy NCAA tournament team and opponent. That league was a really good league this year, and they ended up winning that tournament. And I think they won 6 games last week. So we had very similar weeks in that regard. So definitely a lot of respect for them.
One of the statistics that he mentioned in talking about Wofford there stands out to me when we're trying to decipher who LSU is going to pitch tomorrow. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but they run a lot. They steal a ton of bases. Their offense is geared around hitting a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, and stealing a lot of bases. They don't hit a ton of home runs. The last piece of that is stolen bases, and Jane mentioned that. And I think when you talk about controlling their running game, you start to think about maybe going with the left-hander, and Jay spoke to how to control Wofford on the bases.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, limiting base runners, is the fastest way to do that. It's like, the old Nebraska football thing. If you could get them in 2nd and 9, they were going to have a hard time, throwing the ball, So, I mean, limiting base runners is the best way to do it by pitching and defending well, handling the ball in the infield well, throwing strikes. It's, really just playing sound fundamental baseball to not allow them to get into their deal.
And that's all right. And the other piece to it, which is secondary to not allowing base runners. Because if you don't allow them to get on base, you really control the running game. But the second piece to it is left-handers help. And you notice Jay didn't say anything there about being left-handed because that would be tipping your hand, and that's the last thing he's going to do. When he gets in front of those microphones with 24 hours to go until his team plays in a regional, his goal is to not say anything. Okay? That's why he's not answering the Christian Little question. That's why he's not answering starting pitching, and that's why he's not even going to allude to the fact that a left-handed hitter might help you get with the running game. Left-handed pitcher might help you with the running game because that could be leaning towards, we got to go with jump. I think because they run a ton, Milazzo's behind the dish, which he's been for 3 weeks, so that doesn't really have anything to do with it. But I think Jump's going to pitch because of that as well. And so that, to me, is something that they've got to weigh. If Wofford cannot run the way they want to, it makes it it makes it much more difficult for them to score because they're just probably not going to hit 2 home runs worth 4 runs. They certainly could, but it would be out of their character. Their character is to get on base early in the inning, to run a little bit, to hit and run, to put some pressure on the defense, and a left-hander makes that more difficult for them. So I think I expect to see Gage Jump in the game tomorrow to start it. The other side of things is the Wofford pitching, and we talked about Zach Cowan yesterday. I gave the comparison to Tanner Hall from Southern Miss. He's a shorter right-hander, 3/4 arm slot, good athlete, fastball around 90, 3-4 pitches for strikes, going to sink it, going to cut it, throw the slider, throw that changeup as well. He's a good pitcher. Do I think he's a dominant pitcher? No. Do I think he would be an SEC Friday night guy? No. That's my opinion on Zach Cowan. This is Jay Johnson's opinion on him.
Is a converted position player who's a really good athlete, has great feel for what he's doing. Like, it's a really good delivery, so everything comes out kind of looking the same, and his athleticism helps him with that. He's an elite changeup, real elite changeup, and he kind of throw it where he wants, has a bunch of movement on it, has enough on the fastball to be able to mix well, and he throws it where he wants to. When he wants to throw it in the zone, he throws it in the zone. When he wants to throw it out of the zone, he can make it look like it's in the zone and throw it out of the zone. He's a really good pitcher.
That's basically in my line of thinking as well. Jay knows a lot more about offense and has a lot more information in his hands than I do, checking out some 6 innings on YouTube. But you can tell what Zach Cowan is. And Gonzaga had a similar guy a few years ago when LSU went up to Eugene, and it didn't go very well. So we've seen soft tossing guys that have a bunch of junk that aren't necessarily first-round draft picks tie LSU knots at times. My hope is that does not happen in the ball game tomorrow. Something clicked for this team in Hoover offensively. They really swung it during the middle of that week in the games on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And Jay talked about kind of that offensive ride through the SEC tournament.
I saw a lot of maturity, that's what you want. And I think it was a perfect blend of patience, aggressiveness on mistakes, under control with runners on base, take your walks. We looked like our offense, and it just took a little longer with this team because Tommy was the only one that really played wire to wire. Now, obviously, Jared, Josh, Hayden, those guys had a number of at-bats, but this year they've been in there from start to finish.
And we're gonna need those guys in a big way coming up over the weekend. I was thrilled to see Jared Jones hit home run in 4 straight games. Thrilled to see Travinski have a big fly early in that weekend. Obviously, Milam and Brown had huge hits as well. And Michael Braswell in the leadoff spot has given the top of this order an identity that it lacked for the better part of 3 months. And he was sensational in Hoover, and Jay talked about what that has meant to the lineup.
Yeah, well, Michael's done a great job. I think he's an experienced player. It's one of the reasons that I wanted him. He'd been through the conference twice, and he made a tremendous improvement offensively. Like, we stripped it down and started from the very beginning with him, with what he was doing in the weight room physically, how he was moving, all that stuff. And it took a lot just to get to the swing part of it. And then as he's gotten more comfortable with that, it's actually kind of refined his approach. And you just want him on base when those other guys are coming up. And he can also hurt you. I mean, he had a lot of doubles in SEC play. Had a couple homers last weekend. So he's filled it really nicely. I'm really proud of him. That's another good, portal development story. And the energy he plays with has added a lot to our team.
I had bold predictions the day before opening day. And one of them was that Michael Braswell hit 12 extra base hits in 2 years at South Carolina. He would double that output in 1 year in Baton Rouge. I thought he'd have 24 extra base hits. I don't think we're going to get there. We're 6 short. We're at 18. But consider he had 12 in 2 years at South Carolina. He's at 18 in 1 year at LSU. Maybe they play long enough, he can crank out 6 more extra base hits. But he was fantastic in Hoover. And when he gets on base, all of a sudden the opposing pitcher, it's a nightmare because you've got Tommy White and Jared Jones who are so physically imposing. And then obviously Travinski's back there and Pearson and now what Milam's doing. Like, when he starts to fire, it can burn for a while. And so that's the goal for Michael Braswell, and he's done an awesome job over the last 2 weeks since being inserted into that leadoff spot. So that's your information from Jay Johnson up there in Chapel Hill. Our baseball breakdowns all season long, brought to you by Pluckers. When we come back, we will close out a Thursday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years of redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you're looking for a full-scale bathroom renovation or remodel, you make one phone call. It's to David Duvall and his team. That's it. You don't have to call 4 different contractors, do 4 different portions of the job. Just one, David Duvall and his team. They start with a free consultation. You say you listen to the Hunt Palmer Show, they'll give you $1,000 off. Then they walk you through the entire process. And if you want to do that, you certainly can. If you're not looking for something that drastic, maybe it's just a tub-to-shower conversion. They can handle that as well. If you don't ever use your tub, you don't have my 2-year-old splish-splashing all over the place every weeknight, making an absolute mess of things and potentially cracking his head open, you don't use that, well, take the tub out. Go ahead and put a glass walk-in shower. Changes the look and the functionality of your bathroom. Adds value to your home as well. It all starts with a free consultation. $1,000 off to listeners of the Hunt Palmer Show at One Bath and Closets. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Go.
For the Friday edition of Live at Lunch, we are at Rufino's as always on a Friday, but we got LSU baseball as they take on Wofford in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. Friday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Closing things down here, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's. Looking for your weekend grocery shopping? Get on by Rouse's. Fantastic selection. Fresh meats back there in the butcher shop. All your wine and spirits, as well as your cold beers. You're watching some baseball this weekend. Get on by Rouse's and make your house the place to watch the Tigers in the regional. Keys tomorrow. I think you're going to see Gage jump. He needs to be the guy that he's been for the last 6 weeks if he is. I believe he holds this Wofford offense to somewhere close to 2-3 runs. And I think LSU can do something to this Wofford pitching staff, especially if you can get their starter, Zach Cowan, out of the ball game. I like LSU tomorrow. I like LSU to win the game by 4 or 5 runs tomorrow. And the key here in doing so would be potentially saving Griffin Herring for a huge moment in the game on Saturday. So that's my thought. We'll be obviously on the air as the game is coming to its conclusion, and we'll talk about how the game went in the second hour of tomorrow's show. But I like the Tigers against Wofford. I think North Carolina is legit. I think they're very good. I'm skeptical of Wofford. They could absolutely shut me up and prove me wrong tomorrow, but I'm thinking that the Tigers win the ball game up there in Chapel Hill at 11 o'clock. We'll certainly be talking about it. One more order of business here. Let's do some take it or leave it.
Turn that bad boy up a little bit. All right, Hunt. Pac-12 Player of the Year. Oh, hold on. Okay. Pac-12 Player of the Year, Caleb Love, and Alabama's Mark Sears will withdraw their names from the NBA draft and return to school for their final season of eligibility. Has NIL changed the way players view the draft? Take it or leave it.
I would take it. I can't speak to Caleb Love or Mark Sears' exact situation. I don't know that either one was like, a top 20 pick in the NBA draft. I think they were fringe guys who would have to make their way, whether it was through the G League or being on a two-way deal or even going overseas. So what I do know is that Mark Sears coming back for Alabama makes them a top 5 roster, I think, in college basketball next year to start things. So that makes me want to vomit, but it's true. So that's a big get for Nate Oates and company to have Mark Sears coming back.
Okay, this one's a little kind of a tongue twister, so stay with me.
I got you.
The Nets held a players-only meeting after Wednesday night game after getting swept by the Los Angeles Dodgers 10-3. George Lopez, who surrendered a 2-run home run to Shohei Ohtani, then fell behind 3-1 to Freddie Freeman for taking issue with third base umpire Ramon De Jesus, ruling on a check swing. The argument earned Lopez an ejection, but as he was exiting the field, he tossed his glove into the stands. After the game, the Mets began the process of designating Lopez for assignment. According to the Associated Press, they will have 7 days to either trade or release him or just send him outright to the minors. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Lopez is not very good, and he admitted to being the worst teammate in Major League Baseball in the press after. And he threw his club into the stands, and he's yelling at umpires, and they don't really need him. So, yeah, I don't believe he'll be outright cut. Whether or not somebody claims him remains to be seen. If he's good enough to pitch for the Mets or them to have him called up, I'm sure somebody will take a swing at him. But, yeah, DFA that guy, get him out of here. I don't think that the Mets need him.
Get him out of there. Get him out of there. Okay, Northwestern is building a temporary lakeside stadium while their permanent stadium is under construction. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I mean, it's an interesting concept where you're building a stadium so you can build a stadium, but they've got an incredible setting there on Lake Michigan up in Evanston. And I think it's going to be really cool because there's not that much cool about Northwestern football. Having a lakefront stadium for a little while is actually cool.
Am I not mistaken? Isn't Northwestern in Chicago?
Just north of Chicago in Evanston.
So they're on the water,
Yes.
windy. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know, man. October, November, it's gonna get kind of chilly.
It's gonna be chilly, but it's not like the Bears in like at Christmas or January because college doesn't play that long. So like September, October is beautiful in Chicago and in Evanston and on the lake. And by the time you get to November, you only play 2 or 3 games where it's a little chilly. So I think they'll be okay. It's a gorgeous setting. It's kind of a weird looking construction deal. It's not gonna be able to fit very many fans. Looking at it, probably looking at like 10,000-12,000 maybe.
That's low.
But they're going to build a stadium that fits a little bit more. They've had a lot of drama up there with Northwestern football. I ended up firing the guy who basically built the program. So it's not a lot of positive things been coming out of Northwestern over the last year and a half. This is kind of cool. It's a novelty thing for them, and so I think it would be cool. Am I going to go to Evanston to watch a Northwestern game on the lakefront? I'm not. But I think it's kind of cool, so we'll take it. That's it for Take It or Leave It on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. The big news of the day, Drew Brees going into the Saints Hall of Fame. I am quite confident Matt Moscona will be leading with that coming up here in about 5 minutes. If you missed any of our show today, you can catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or YouTube. Wherever you find your sound, you can find us. I previewed North Carolina today. Luke Johnson talked a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. Joe Healey talking to all the SEC teams in the NCAA tournament in hour number 1. The SEC released some SEC game times for football season coming up this year. Appreciate Chris Blair for joining us from Chapel Hill as well. When we come to you next, LSU and Wofford will be just about done. Hopefully the Tigers get off to a good start. Have a safe and great Thursday evening. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast.